Hi you guys, this is skill 16, the quadratic equation. So, ways, should be a Y there. We know to solve quadratic equations. So let's just first review what a quadratic is and what a quadratic in standard form looks like. It looks like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So one side always equals 0. We know three methods: factor and set factors to 0. We can graph and find the y-intercepts, x-intercepts. So for example, or we can use the quadratic equation. So today we're going to practice quadratic equation. I'm going to sing a little song for you. It goes x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So there's that. And we're going to go ahead and practice that. So that would tell us what x values make the equation equal 0. So is this in standard form? Yes, it's in standard form. Let's identify my A, B, C is a -1. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This ends up becoming -5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus a -8 over 4 equals -5 plus or minus the square root of 33 over 4. So we have two solutions for x. One where I have a positive and one where I have a negative. So if it says like it wants an exact answer, this is exact. I cannot simplify 33 anymore. So this one is asking us to solve and get a decimal answer and round to the nearest thousandth or hundredth. So that's the something point something something. Let's go ahead and try to solve that. This is not in standard form. I'm going to go ahead and move everything to the other side. So my A equals 9, my B equals 3, my C equals -1. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this is going to translate to x equals -3 plus 45 over 18. And we'd round that to 0.21. And this one would round to that. So make sure you're actually trying and practicing putting those into your calculator. Okay, so we're going to keep practicing these. This time I'll have some complex roots. So that means I'm going to have an ax plus some sort of bi. Or not an x, just an a plus bi. So remember I is imaginary. So a equals 5, b equals 5, c equals 4. So x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we end up with -5 plus or minus, everything under the square root becomes 55, or a -55, sorry. All over 10. Remember that I can write this with an I on the outside. And then it wants us to write it as a fraction. So -5 over 10. And -5 over 10 simplifies to -1/2. Okay, this one is also going to have complex root. A equals 5, b equals 5, c equals 2. So x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. -5 plus or minus this becomes the -15 over 10. And I would write that in order to write it in like standard form where you're real plus your imaginary, I'd write it like this, so -1/2 this is a real world application one. It says a ball is thrown at an initial height of 6 feet, upward velocity of 12 feet. The ball's height is given by the following equation. Find the values from the ball's height is 12. So it essentially wants to know, here's our picture, it wants to know when the height is 12 or when h equals 12. So 12 equals 6 plus I'm going to go ahead and make one side equal to 0 and put it in standard form. So negative 16t squared plus 21t minus 18 equals 0. So x a equals negative 16, b equals 21, c equals negative 18, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I made a mistake with my b value. Or my c value. Six minus 12 is negative 6. This becomes the square root of 57. So if I were to find two answers for this, I'd do x equals negative 21 plus square root of 57 divided by negative 32 equals, and then x equals so make sure you're practicing entering these in your calculator. It asks to the nearest hundredth. So that's two spots. So my answer would be, it says run your answer digits more than one answer, put a 4, an or, so 0.42 or 0.89 seconds. So notice, based on the examples we've done, this one I had a negative under the square root, so I had imaginary. This one I had a positive under the square root, so I ended up with real answers. That's where the discriminant comes in. So the discriminant is when you're given something in standard form, the quadratic equation, so remember it's this part underneath the square root is the discriminant, and if it's less than 0, there's no real roots. If it's equals 0, there's one root, and if it's greater than 0, there's two roots. So we can look at this part of the quadratic and we can predict if our answer is going to have i's in it and how many times we cross the x-axis. So let's go ahead and try that on this next part. It is in standard form, so my a equals negative 6, b equals negative 7, c equals negative 5. So we'd have the discriminant equals b squared minus 4ac the discriminant ends up equaling negative 71. So if I go back to this chart, my discriminant was negative. So it's asking how many real solutions. So no is less than 0, so no real solutions. And we can cry about that. Last part we're going to do is same idea. It asks to know how many real solutions we have. My A is negative 7. My B is 5. My C is negative 2. So my discriminant is B squared minus 4AC. 5 squared minus 4 times negative 7 times negative 2. Negative 31. This is also less than 0. So no real solutions.